Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. The 7th expansion is about to be announced at BlizzCon 2017. Yeah, there's been 7 of the damn things, just in case you woke up today feeling young and fresh. Even though that expansion count is ticking up, you know, Blizzard, they still need to keep the game feeling fresh and feeling different, and to give us something new to sink our teeth into, something that actually manages to make the game feel new enough to still be exciting for players. So let's talk about what those new features could be for Expansion 7. And let's kick it off by making the old world relevant. It is a bit odd how World of Warcraft is so large, yet the playable area that you actually visit is tiny in comparison. They've said a few times that the level scaling system of Legion is a test case for the future. What's the future now? So applying level scaling to the world would allow them to greatly increase the playable area of World of Warcraft and hopefully offer a more varied gameplay experience for players. Potentially. Here's the thing, you can have all the kilometers squared in the world and still not have anything interesting to do inside them. The Legion Invasion events of 7.0 did at least prove that romping around the old world was kind of fun, so at the very least we know that a light smattering of world events and things like that could work out decently, but the big challenge of course is, yeah, we can make all of Azeroth playable, but how do we make it fun? Well, how about this? Dynamic world content. I would love to see the world quests be expanded on and mixed in with multi-staged events and branching paths, making it so that really the same event can play out in like different ways multiple times. Guild Wars 2 does some of this quite well, with the big benefit being that it naturally encourages players to group up and stick together, kind of like a smaller scale version of what we saw happen with the Legion invasions of the pre-patch. Now, I'd also love zones to have their own mechanics. Say a zone is based off the idea of the Alliance and Horde going at each other. Well, how about the world quests spawn in based on how that war is going? You know, that there's maybe various objectives across the zone that impact that. Essentially what you'd be doing is making the content of the area depend slightly on the player input, such that, you know, you could head there with friends and actually have an impact on what's going on. Of course, Alliance versus Horde, that's an easy example. It could easily be us versus the Naga or any other enemy. Now, they have toyed around with these ideas with PvP objectives and zones in the past, stuff like the towers, or the, Terracore Forest, all that jazz. I think it's about time they actually give this a shot with PvE. Expanding this out to some of the old world would of course be a really cool idea, especially if they made things actually feel unique to the game's zones, really bring back the feel of those zones. I think that a mixture of, say, the Cataclysm-styled Alliance Horde War happening, across the world with the factions, plus some zone-based event stuff, would be really cool, and honestly, I think that if they nailed this, it would be a bit of a revolution to World of Warcraft and how it plays. Though of course I can see it being an absolute design nightmare to get it right. Alright, leveling revamp. I mean, man, leveling is in such a strange state with World of Warcraft right now. For the new guys, the game just does not hold up. Outside, of course, of the novelty of traveling around a new world, getting the atmosphere and doing all that stuff. As much as an old world revamp to reflect the post-Cataclysm times would be pretty cool, honestly, I don't see a massive revamp happening given the realities of development, so I would imagine they'd have to be really smart about how they could solve the leveling problem. Level scaling could be applied, of course, to help and balance, broaden the leveling brackets of a given zone so that people don't out-level a zone that they're enjoying and actually get the storyline. Next, they could do some things like streamlining some of the quests to provide a more efficient story, kind of similar to what Star Wars: The Old Republic did a while back. Basically, you would divide a zone's quests into being either main quests or side quests, and you'd have their quest icons be a slightly different color to reflect that. Add in a few gameplay tweaks to ensure that the gameplay is actually, fun, then you could have a leveling experience that is a lot more smooth and story-focused. Definitely a departure from traditional RPG leveling, but just getting someone from 1 to max level through a system like that might be a bit nicer. Honestly though, I just think that slapping a level boost on the problem does not fix it, and a lot of people that I know who are prospective newcomers, they don't want to play in a level boosted character because they feel like they'd have a level boosted character, they wouldn't know what to do, and they'd be skipping out in the game. Okay, a cohesive narrative. Legion had lots of cool self-contained stories, but it did not do a great job of tying those all into a big cohesive narrative. Now technically it was cohesive because we were hunting down the pillars of creation, but I think it's clear enough that doing 5 disconnected parts parts of a treasure hunt is not really conducive to a solid 3-act story. I would love to see the next expansion take some of the good self-contained stories of Legion, do those, but also take a look at the storytelling elements from, say, Warlords of Draenor, where they had a cast of characters who would be with you throughout the leveling zones, giving them enough screen time to grow and develop as characters. In Legion, characters like Sylvanas and Gen pretty much had stories massively hurt by a really short running time, so avoiding that in the future would be pretty fantastic. Plus, I think that it could actually lead to a campaign that properly gets people hyped for the endgame, and I think that's something that's really important. Okay, guild halls. I think the guild halls would be brilliant. Historically, Blizzard have always said something odd about them. They said they were worried that guild hall customization would be limited to just the officers and the guild masters. That's not a problem. People in guilds are already happy with officers and GMs doing decision-making and keeping everything, running ship-shaped. It's not an issue. The cool thing about a guild hall is less that you as an individual get to do some customization, and it's meant to be a testament to all of your shared achievements, something that can help bond you all together. Mounting the heads of dead raid bosses as a monument to your combined PvE successes is just something that's really cool. You'd go to an experienced guild and they would have an amazing guild hall, and for a less experienced guild, that would be a really cool thing to work on, and to complete a really big milestone, come home and see, holy shit, we can now do big upgrades to our guild hall, and this is going to look really cool. That's just exciting for people. Now, of course, it's important that the garrison-like problems don't happen again, so the utility would have to be toned down, but my core thing is that it's less about an individual having customization, and it's more about something that's really, really cool because you all sort of work together to unlock the things that go into it. Next, we've got to talk about boats. Boats are cool as hell, and since so much of the speculation is about a maritime expansion, we gotta have a section about boats in this video. I mean, come on, it's obligatory. So, I think that this could be amazing for the game in a few different ways. First of all, adding various different docks to the various seaside zones of the game, as well as some new island zones, would allow for a form of fast travel that feels very natural and in-universe and in-lore, and it could help to tie the new regions together in a pretty cohesive way, better than, say, the Cataclysm portals. Then, customizing your ship, of course, would be really cool. But that's only one thing. Get a load of this. What if they had events that would spawn in the sea? You'd head to your boat, you'd click in the wheel or whatever, and you'd be able to, open a map, go to one of these events that spawned in the sea. So you sail your boat over to a tropical island, you plunder a shipwreck, you do a deep sea dive. Perhaps something like this could be a continuation of what we saw with the Legion invasion points from a tactic perspective, but hopefully far, far more varied. I'd really love it if Blizzard would have some semi-procedural maps, sort of down so that you could visit new environments in the ocean, do that through your boat, maybe bring some of your friends with you, even having a rudimentary ship combat event, think the ICC gunship, but on the sea. That would just be a really cool change of pace. And then customization-wise, you could do a hell of a lot of stuff. You could have different art for the sails, different ship bodies, all that stuff. Once again, this of course cannot have a garrison-like problem, so for me the focus is on, okay, players can have a boat. What does that mean? Well, it means we can put events in the sea and deliver new types of content and gameplay. So it's more about what a boat allows you to do, and less about being in your boat all the time forever and the game being, Warlords-like. Next up, single-player challenges. Okay, I love group play in an MMO, of course, but sometimes that rock-hard single-player stuff, that's got a place too. The 7.2 class challenges showed us that, or showed me anyway, that I'd love to see Blizzard invest more in this area. Rather than a big system, though, like the 7.2 class challenges, that all has to be added at once and takes up loads of work, I just like these to be a consistent thing as time goes on. This could mean loads of different things, from challenging encounters with a single-player boss to stuff like the Chromie or the Thunder King scenarios. All this stuff was unique, different-feeling content that I think had a lot of value. Sometimes you just want to chill out on your own, but World of Warcraft doesn't have solo gameplay that competes with basically any other genre, bar say the Chromie or the class challenges. So I think that having more content like this would mean that when I go home and I just feel like chilling out in a single-player thing, I can actually log into World of Warcraft and do that as a thing to happen alongside the group stuff. Now, one of my viewers had a really cool idea. It was basically a scaling dungeon that would get harder as you progress. So like a solo challenge thing where you're trying to challenge yourself. Almost a bit like a Greater Rift in Diablo 3. You could have some leaderboards that are maybe class-specific, spec-specific, something like that. I just thought it was a really neat idea as a bit of side content. I mean, hey, they did the Endless Hull, so maybe something like this is actually possible. Next up, Rethinking Gear. being the core of the reward loop, altering gear, it's a pretty damn touchy subject. I think, though, that we're actually stuck with the main elements of the Legion system, for better or for worse, so rather than talk about completely gutting it, I want to focus in this video on making them better. It just seems like the more pragmatic thing to do. Essentially, I would like to mix Titan Forging with an upgrade system so that you could get lucky and, say get a Titan Forged trinket, or if that trinket didn't Titan Forge, well, it's okay, you've got the trinket. You can still upgrade it manually a certain amount. That would mean the Titan Forging feels like a nice freebie, but it's not the be-all, end-all thing. So you can get lucky, have a few free upgrades, or you can just put the work in and upgrade that trinket that, you're really happy that you got. Currency would probably, say a system close enough to VP, that would probably work out quite well for this, maybe just throw in a few tweaks or something like that. I'd love to see the idea of getting currency from melting down your gear in the Bellular Forge, but to be honest, I really worry that reconciling this into the overall system wouldn't be balanced in a multiplayer game. I think it probably works really well for like Path of Exile, but maybe less so in an MMO. Next, I think we've got to talk about dungeons. Mythic Plus was one of the great successes of Legion, and if the Legion dungeons only lasted as long as the Warlords ones did, Legion would be really far worse off as an expansion. Now, building upon this great success makes a lot of sense for the next expansion, so I would love to see a lot of stuff. First of all, new affixes, ones that make the gameplay feel varied from Legion. I think that's really important. I'd also like to see more dungeons at launch, and I would like to see bosses that have more Mythic-only mechanics than we currently have. I'd also wonder if having them work sort of with an aforementioned currency system from the the gear section of this video, I wonder if that would be good. I know it technically exists with AP, but to be honest, I do not find getting an AP, biscuit at the end of the thing being that much fun. But my core point is this: putting more resources into dungeons, it seems like green pastures. And from the people who are maybe, doing the Mythic plus 20s or the plus 15s right now, what would you like to see added to a Mythic Plus system? I'm really keen to get that perspective. Another feature I would love is pug raids. You might be really confused by what I mean there. Surely they exist already, and that is true, but I'm thinking along the lines of Wrath of the Lich King. It had a number of one-boss raids, like Sarth, EOE, Onyxia, Halion, and then something like Vault of Archivon. These basically acted as pug-friendly raids that were super time-efficient to do, but they had a fixed group size, and that meant that you could actually still balance the gameplay. These really help to introduce me to raiding, so I think that bringing them back would be a great move. Of course, we have flexible raiding now, which is great, but balanced boss fights. World bosses pretty much suck in my view. They are zerged so easily that just the mechanics may as well not exist with how they're balanced at the minute. They're only a weekly loot pinata. I would rather have less of that and more of just fights that actually matter. Next, let's talk about endgame progression. So moving on from Legion, I actually do mostly like artifacts. I did not mind having the same weapon all expansion, and in the future, as long as they keep on giving you transmog options with each patch, I'd be happy. I'd like it if they shifted away from the AP grind. Capping it is one way to do that, though of course the devs have rightly discussed that there are some issues there with a weekly cap on a currency. Perhaps an artifact-like system where you unlock your full power quite quickly, but then unlock more options later. Maybe that would be a good idea. So a bit less like the Legion system and almost closer to a talent system where you could, have to make choices. This could be a place to sneak in some of what would have been done by the performance-affecting legendary items that exist in Legion, given how it's very unlikely that we'll see those return, at least in the way that they ended up existing on Legion. And on that topic, I think that utility legendaries can be really fun, so it would be nice to have similar effects be baked into a progression system. I'm happy to grind out for more utility options, but getting, my core set of powers quick, that would be very nice. And finally, new races and sub-races. I've got a big video, it breaks all this down properly, like by race, and goes into all the details and stuff, but basically, a new race would be pretty cool, but what I think would almost be more, cool is adding a lot more depth to the existing ones. So, sub-races where it makes sense, region-based cultural stuff, items, transmogs, jewelry, tattoos, etc., where that makes sense, and generally just adding more, gameplay-focused options for people that are about the core fantasies of each race. So there you go, that is pretty much what I would love to see in a future expansion. Hopefully some of the more ballsy stuff gets it into the game, and what I would like is, this next expansion does have a few really daring features, the stuff that defines the expansion, the stuff that's really interesting, and I hope that those features are game content features and not just a reward system or something like that. I actually want the game to feel different to play. Now, I don't mean that in terms of, oh, my class feels different. No, I more mean just something new, something that's really fresh and different. the kind of ballsy thing that you need a lot of money to make, and thankfully Blizzard are the people who have a lot of money. So of course we'll have to see what we get, but thankfully that's not going to be too far away, only a few days off in fact. But that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and do let me know what sort of stuff you would like to see in terms of new features in the next expansion down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.